Hi, welcome to Real Talk with T and M. I'm your host, Myranda. I also go interchangeably by Myra or M. I'm super happy that you're here. Thank you for joining us today. And I am really excited about today. I'm sure you've noticed my co-host Tina isn't with us today. However, I do have a super special guest that I get to introduce in just a minute. Um, I decided to do this podcast because I wanted to help people with their mental health and just help them along in their journey because I've been super blessed in my life. As much as I've been through, I've been able to overcome that because of the support that I've had, people not giving up on me, and the resources that I've been able to utilize. And I realize that not everybody in life has those same privileges and blessings that I do. And so being able to share what I've learned with other people makes me feel like I'm able to give back to my community and to my people that I care about. And so that was one thing that I really wanted to share. So in this, in this group here, this podcast with my community, we talk openly about the hardest parts of mental health, about healing, real life, hope, and like everything in between, which is what we're going to be doing today. So, like I said, a very special guest. This is Kaylee.
Hello.
She is not just a guest, she's also one of my closest friends. She knows me better than most people do, probably too well. And I've shared like lots of laughs with her. Like even before we were recording this, we were talking. We have some of the most meaningful conversations, and whether they're like deep conversations or they're just completely ridiculous. She's just always brought like the realness with her. And so please just welcome her to the show.
Thank you. And I'm so excited to be here. A little nervous,
Yes.
but I'm here.
It's okay. We're going to have fun today. That was the whole point of our conversation planner today, was to have fun. This is what we're going to be doing today. It's just randomized topics of conversation about mental health, values, beliefs, and we're just going to be sharing our perspectives on things as we discuss these different topics. There's like 40 different questions in here, so they're just random and stuff. So if you want to just grab some popcorn or grab something to snack on and, get cozy and buckle up, we're going to spend about half an hour just going through these. So, yeah. Do you want to choose our first one?
I will.
Okay.
Let's see what we got here.
Let's mix that shit up. Okay.
Oh,
we want all of the papers.
Yep.
Okay.
So, the loneliness epidemic and how we build real connection.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So I think this is like two ways, because I've heard a lot of people talking about the male loneliness epidemic, but there's also like the loneliness epidemic that like really came out with like COVID.
Yeah, exactly what I was just going to say too, because that's where I kind of correlated it was when I was working in the facility with elderly and disabled people. It felt like I was in prison. Like it was like I was locked up with them.
Oh yeah.
Like having to see loved ones through just glass and over hearing their voice over a phone.
Yeah.
Like it was so lonely, and watching them go through it in like some of the most vulnerable time in their life was even harder to watch.
Oh yeah.
And then like going to and from work was really interesting because before with public transportation, like the trains and buses and tracks, stuff like that, people were, pretty friendly, and they'd come up, random conversation, come up and shake your hand and stuff.
Yeah. And sit across from you and
conversate. Yeah, they'd actually like communicate and touch your hand, Anyways, it was really interesting to sit back and watch how people just distance themselves.
It was like a massive like change.
Yeah. And then during COVID, people were even afraid to even talk just across the tracks, sitting on a bus, train, whatever, from each other, just to exchange numbers.
Like even eye contact changed.
Yes. Like I remember that, like I especially where like I was coming from work wearing scrubs and like had like the mask and like gear and stuff. People would like mandatory 10 feet circle around me and was scared to even come up and approach me.
Oh yeah.
As well. And that that I noticed was a big shift, and for especially like my kids too,
Mm-hmm.
with their social and like how
Mm-hmm.
it changed their in schooling. There's that summer, that first summer, I remember so like vividly too. Like they were so lonely, not able to
Mm-hmm.
go to like summer school
Yeah,
and
and
even
have
get
like that human interaction
yeah,
and
yeah, like
connection.
they were just like so lost, and I don't. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
a rough couple of years
Oh
for
my
sure, and I feel
gosh.
like it's changed
Mm-hmm.
in so many ways.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's still like when I use the public transport to commute around here, it's like people aren't. It's I'd say it's gotten a little bit better, but
I
there's
think
just
people
still
are like,
that big
it's
divide.
a massive gap. I feel like people, maybe they're not like still, maybe some people are like still anxious and stuff, but I feel like people are like having to relearn how
Yes,
to re-socialize.
exactly.
Like almost like when you have like a dog and you have to sit there and, as a puppy or, a dog that hasn't been around like people and like other animals, like you have
Mm-hmm.
to re-socialize them and it takes time. And like
Exactly.
there's not really like, maybe communication classes in college that I like took, like that was the most way, like best way for like adults to learn how to like kind of get that relationship with other people.
Yep.
But like even now, like that's not enough. Like reforming those bonds with people,
Mm-hmm.
that's like a whole other like thing to try and like
Yeah.
do. Like I feel like it's hard too, because even though like, yeah, I'm grateful that we had like, we could still FaceTime, we could still
Yeah.
call and we could still do that stuff. So it's not like super isolated.
Right.
At the same time, like one of my things that I really struggled with was when I went into septic shock and um, I was in the ICU, and I remember like the nurses coming in hazmat suits and they would only touch me like if they had to administer
Yeah.
medication. And it's like I'm sitting there and I'm like, going through my process of grieving, and like I'm sitting there. There's only one other, like there was a 90-year-old woman in the unit and she was on polar opposites. We weren't allowed outside of the room to do like walks around the unit.
Wow.
And like the nurses, like, like with nurses, they come up to you and they like touch you and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, sweetie, how are you? Are you okay?"
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't have like any human connection.
Yeah.
And so like, I was lucky. I was only in the ICU for a week before I came home, but like those people who were there longer term, like that loneliness that you feel like, because I mean I even struggle with it with borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
One of the highlighting traits of borderline personality disorder is that we do struggle with loneliness.
Yeah.
And it's like a very deep rooted like struggle to have to sit there and move through loneliness.
Yes.
And like even though like you have the right support system and like you have friends and you have people that you can call, having that like in-person conversation with your
Yes.
friend, or being able to go out and grab like a bite to eat,
Yeah.
like even those like small connections make such a big difference for
It
people
does.
when they're dealing with loneliness. And I feel like also it's hard because some people really don't put the effort in to connect
Yes.
with people.
Exactly.
Because I'm sure you've noticed like people are just like, I'd rather stick to myself, or like I'm in my own little world and I'm doing my own thing. And then it's hard because people don't expand themselves out of that circle and they don't realize like, hey, everybody else is having their own like experience.
Right.
And I want to be part of that experience.
Yeah.
Because I remember people used to come up to me and just talk to me like randomly.
Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. And now it's like people are just like, nope, I got to get in and out. I'm going to hurry and mind my business. And I'm just like, why is it so hard for people to connect with each other?
Exactly. And another aspect too is like I notice, with technology is a big thing too. Like,
yeah.
I love how this is a way, like even like doing this is a big way to get ourselves out there and our voices heard, and that's also become a big part of it too.
Yeah.
Like, online communities and group chats and social clubs online, like it's just become such a thing, not even a common thing. There you go. Like everybody has that kind of common ground. You have a phone, you have access to,
yeah, like once you have a phone, you have like access to the world.
Exactly. And I like that. I love that. And it can, you can reach from here to China basically. So I like that aspect of it, but it's really hard for me to navigate at my age. Yeah. For my kids, it might be different.
By the way, we're not like ancient. Me and her, we're only 2 months apart. We're both 35.
Yep. Or as we say, 35.
Yes, we're 35.
But yeah,
yes.
it's, I do have teenagers, so, and their aspect is completely different. They love gaming online and not seeing my brother, their uncles, and their aunts, and we're not. They love gaming online, and just that little bit of communication, does go a long way.
It does matter,
and it is enough for it to count. It is enough for them to feel like they're present in the moment. So I love the different ways we have and to utilize. But it's also, like you said, it just feels like there's that big divide, and then also the male
loneliness epidemic.
Yeah, like stigma or whatever you want to call that. I totally agree with that too. And we'll touch on that too, because I've got a lot to say when it comes to like mental health awareness with males, female, male. It's not mental health isn't biased to a sex or
it affects everybody.
Exactly. That's one of the biggest things I have too, is it's not biased. Mental health.
I think it's also like, I don't remember where I heard this, but I was recently talking with somebody, and it's like people back in the day, like before my day, like the way that they sat there and they functioned is they had 3 places. So they would have their home, and they had their workplace, but then they had extra places that they could go to. Like a coffee shop, or like places just to sit down. They would read a newspaper. They would conversate with people. And like now, since COVID's hit, like, and everything shut down, and especially here in Utah, unfortunately, we close everything at like 9 p.m. at the latest. Like, there's no even like weird random gas stations that stay open. Walmart doesn't stay open. Like, there's nowhere to really like sit down and meet people and talk with them.
I've noticed that too, actually.
And like, what is everybody doing during the middle of the day? Working. Because everything's so expensive now. Like, there's no way to sit there and make time to sit there and go out and like do things and meet people and relax and decompress.
And that's what I was going to say when you said that too. It's like people don't have enough time. It's almost like time is money too. So if you're wasting time sitting there talking, you're wasting time. You're wasting money in a sense too. So it's so it makes sense why like
people are so lonely.
Yes.
And like, going back to like the male loneliness epidemic, I think it's also really hard because like men don't have like the resources that women do for mental health.
That's very true. Sadly.
And so like, women have learned to really like thrive in connection with each other.
Yes.
Like, women have actually learned how to co-regulate their nervous systems. If they have like a woman friend that they're bonded with, we've learned how to like regulate each other's nervous systems.
That's true.
And so like men, they're not as emotionally and intellectually developed in those ways because they haven't had that opportunity.
Right.
And so for them, they don't get to connect with their guy friends, but they also don't know how to connect with women properly.
That's true.
And so those connections don't happen the way that they need them to be able to fulfill those needs that they have.
Yes, because you can totally tell the difference. Like, I have 2 teenage boys, so seeing them with all their guy friends, the energy level, the impact it has on them, how versus when it's just them home with me and their stepdad. It's like, it's a big big difference. Like, if they haven't studied that already, like just how you said, how our bodies kind of correlate, and like, it's that time of the month, we're gonna work together here and help. I coming from 2 other siblings, that is totally true. Even in a workplace, like where it's been all females, and
it's so crazy that it's not just like an emotional level. It even like syncs up on a biological level.
Exactly. Thank you. It's like exactly what I wanted to say. It's like, so that you're kind of all going through it at the same time. So you can be there to help each other and, support each other and cry if you need to cry, or
like,
laugh if you need to
soothe
laugh.
each other. And like, we've learned how to have that connection.
Exactly. And it's scientifically proven. But for men, where
men, it's like, be a man, sit there and like,
testosterone.
Exactly. Like, you need to sit there and handle shit on your own. And like, it's like, well, how do you expect like a human being to come into this world and to be able to like have all of the resources that they need to handle everything on their own? But like, one of the other big things, like when I was in therapy, one of the big things that kept on getting driven was that we needed human connection. And to be quite frank, I would not have made the recovery that I made if I had not had the communication and the connection that I had with my group of friends and my support group. Because like, when I sat there and I went through group therapies prior to, like, specifically, I went to the OCD and Anxiety Center. And like I had gone to like previous like group therapies, like at Salt Lake Behavioral Health.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it was nice to have group therapy, but like the OCD and Anxiety Center really drove home that, human connection is one thing that's really big. And so like I really built like a huge bond with my group of friends. Like it's a group of at least 25 people. And so like these people feel like my family.
Yes.
And doing things like doing therapy by myself, yeah, therapy helps, to certain degrees. And like having like groups of friends is like something that helps too, but like having like a legitimate like circle of friends who's a support system, like who you can call up and be like, hey, I just wanted to talk, or hey, can you come and hang out with me for a little bit? Like that's something that really changed things for me. Like I had a hard night the other night and I called up one of my friends and I was like, hey, can you just come over and hang out with me for a few minutes? And like, even though it wasn't like a long hangout, like we still sat there and we talked and like we were able to bond and connect and like be understood and have compassion and empathy. Like those things that address like the loneliness is something that a lot of the world is lacking. And a lot of people haven't been taught how to build that support system either.
It's true.
And like, not only just build it for themselves, but how to show up for other people to help other people build up that for themselves.
That is such a good, a whole like topic on its own.
Oh my
too.
gosh,
like,
for real.
I mean, like if I would have known what hindsight is always 20/20, they say, but like the community, surrounding myself with those that I want, need in my life. If I'm trying to get there. I am getting there. I feel like I am. But if I would have known that a long time ago, I feel like I'd be in a whole different place.
Same. Like that process and stuff. Because it's also hard too, like when you're going through the process of learning how to like build up a support system. It's also, and I know this is a big thing for me, it's part of self-sabotaging, is that we tend to isolate ourselves. And like, that's not healthy for people to do. Like isolating yourself is not giving other people the ability or the chance to even show up for you when they want to. Because like if I sit there and I isolate myself from you and I'm having a bad day, I'm sure you would much rather be like, hey, I want to hear about your bad day, than to know that I sat home and I like cried and I was just miserable. Like that I took away your opportunity to show up for me.
Exactly.
And so I think that's also another thing that we have to remember while we're dealing with like loneliness, is that we can't just shut ourselves off and prevent the people who want to be there for us, the people who love us and care about us and our well-being, and take that opportunity away from them.
Like it's okay to have a bad day, it's okay to reach out.
Be human.
Yes, exactly.
Like we all have our days. Like this is just part of like the human journey. Like we just all have like, ups and downs. Like life is not linear in any form.
No.
Like it's always going to be up and down across the board.
Exactly.
And so learning to sit there and accept people's love, which I think is another thing, is like when it comes to loneliness, learning to feel worthy of being loved and knowing that you're worthy just simply because you exist, and accepting it is hard.
Yes.
Because like that was one thing for me. For a long time, I've always said that I felt like I was a human grenade for a multitude of reasons. And I just felt like I was going to hurt the people who loved me. And that's why I pushed people away. And so that was something that led to a lot of loneliness for me, was because I pushed people away because of those reasons. And so like now that I've learned to rely on people and to accept their love for me and be like, this is their choice. I don't have the right to tell you whether or not you care about me.
Exactly.
Like that's not a right that I have. And to be able to respect that you care about me is something that has changed my like process in dealing with loneliness as well.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that. I feel like that, we kind of went like a few different directions there, but it's
it's like a whole encompassing.
Like, and it's like I feel like people can actually, with hearing this, I hope actually be like, oh hey, I can relate to that. Like I do that, or I have done that, or I've been there. Like if you've got any advice or anything, send it our way. Like,
or if you have
still
questions,
learning,
you can always comment. Like I'm always more than happy to send you resources or to talk with you individually about things. Like just that connection with people and sharing like the tips and stuff that you learn like as you go through life. Like we're all growing through life. Like there's not a like manual that you get when you come into life that teaches you how to be a human being, how to be functional, how to be happy, how to process loneliness, how to process grief. Like there's nothing that's out there. And so like learning to share like those things as we go through life, I think is important.
It is. It's, you know, we're almost like we're writing our own journal right now. You know, we're documenting this. Like
exactly.
this is out there.
Yes. Like this is going to be out there for anybody that needs it. And, you know, I feel like a lot of people also, they just are so busy because life demands that of them.
Yes.
That they also don't have that time and ability to connect with somebody.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I would highly recommend is like taking the time, not just for yourself, like, you know, self-care and like time for yourself is great because being alone with yourself is something that you have to learn. So you can learn about yourself.
Yes.
But taking a step back and also making time for like the people that you care about and the people who care about you. Like if you don't make that time will never be made for you.
Yeah.
Like you have to make the time for people because life's not going to be like, oh, well, there's 24 hours in a day and you need an hour with your friends. So here's another hour.
Yeah. We'll slide this back over to you.
We'll slide that scale today. I guess we'll make today a 25-hour day.
Right.
So you have to make that time for people.
That is very true, actually. You know, I can't agree more with that. So
yeah,
I think we've hit quite a few on there.
I think so too.
Yeah. You want to pick one?
I do.
Go for it.
Let's see.
I feel like we can talk about many different things on just one topic. So I'm like,
for real.
Oh my gosh, are we gonna get through all these? Maybe not.
We are.
We'll find out.
Oh gosh. Okay. What advice would you give to your future self?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, future self. So let's just say for our future self, let's do 5 years from now.
5 years.
5 years from now. I think one of the biggest things that I would tell myself that I've really been working on lately and I really need to incorporate more is to dream bigger and to stay consistent with the actions that will lead me to bigger things.
Yeah.
Because feel like you have to challenge so many limiting beliefs.
Yes.
And so I tell myself to dream bigger and to have actions that are consistent that will lead you to those dreams.
Yes. For me, it's kind of a tough one because I have a certain amount of goals that I want by the time
we're going to be 40.
Yeah. The big 4-0.
Oh my God.
It's like, you know, a lot of things come into play into mind where I'm like, you know, I want to be able to retire. My kids will both be adults.
It's going to be wild.
You know, they could be on their way to, you know, schooling, education, working families at that point. So
you could be a grandma.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
My mom was a grandma at the age of like 37, 38. So it could totally happen for me at like any point. So no, knock on wood.
We're knocking on wood.
But you know, nonetheless, I'm so grateful to be able to have that journey and be able to say that I'm gonna hopefully in 5 years maybe a grandma would be amazing, but it's the financial stability for me and what I'm gonna do next, like career wise. Am I gonna continue doing what I'm doing?
So you want to like really focus on like
yes, like
honing in on things.
Oh yeah, like almost like a big shift. It really I think needs to be done. That's the next step in my life. I definitely want to get the kids' education and stuff out of the way, like as in high school, you know, onto their next path of life, whether it's college or a tech school and all that.
Maybe like a job.
A job.
Just helping them like move through their phases in life. So being like a guiding parent.
And whether or not, you know, Salt Lake City is the place to be or outside.
Maybe going out of state.
Yep, I've thought about that as well. So for me, it's what steps are next to achieve that goal. So like you were saying, I got to know that I can dream bigger because I've kind of put myself in a situation where it's like, well, I know I'll only be able to afford this, or I'm only ever going to be able to afford this, so I'm not going to be able to do this because of this.
Yeah.
So in order to make those things a reality, I would definitely tell myself to definitely put your energy into the things that matter the most. And definitely, the bigger picture, as I like to say,
and challenge those limiting beliefs.
And those, and those, people around me, those that I surround myself with continually every day. Definitely, I would tell myself,
make sure support you
yes,
in
that
your
are
dreams,
taking my light from me, and that are there cheering me on and not trying to watch me fail or set me up for failure even, or
because you know what they say, like, you can sit there and have people who are on your team, but it doesn't mean that they're cheering for you.
Exactly.
Like, you need to have people who are at your table making room for you, and also sharing their food for you, but also people who are on your team and cheering for you.
Yes, that's very true. So it's like it's a really messy chapter of my life right now. It's interesting, it's fun, it's random right now. It's a little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
I am used to chaos, so I don't like to live in it.
Well, think about it like this. Like, you could compare it to, like, when a seed is being buried underneath the dirt, it can't see that it's going to grow into like a big tree.
Yeah.
It can't see outside of that dirt. It's in the dark.
Yep.
And so you're just kind of in that phase.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, what am I planting here?
Yes.
And then I'm just going to have to sit there and like put in the work and trust that things are going to grow.
Yep. Nurture it and grow it and tend to it. Yes. It's going to be, I know it's going to be a messy and bumpy, scary road the next couple of years or so, next 5 years from now. But I would just like to tell myself, future self, it's okay.
And you can do it.
Yeah, I know I can do it. I've been through way worse, honestly. Like, my 20s were such
20s are like, woo.
Oh, I could get a redo.
Yes.
But my 20s were such a struggle, though, that I feel like if I can get through my 20s with as little information and resources that I had then, I do feel like, and I know I can get to where I want if I apply everything I have and utilize everything and everyone that I can.
Yes. And touching on this, for those of you who are watching this and you're in your 20s, I promise you, getting into your 30s really will help you start to feel more capable of living the life that you are meant to live and that you deserve to live, and that you can have the life that you dream of. It just is like, when you're in your 20s, you're learning so much about life, and like life comes at you in so many different directions.
So fast too.
It's so quick, because you go from being like a kid to being an adult, and then like dealing with all the adult responsibilities and the adult consequences.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, well, there's all of this stuff that can be discouraging to deal with in your 20s. But I promise you, once you get a little bit older into your 30s, that starts to feel a lot better, and it's not so intimidating, and you know that you can overcome challenges and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Just how I know I survived my 20s.
You're going to survive your 30s.
I'll survive my 30s.
As we move into our 40s.
Yep. And then we'll go from there.
Then we'll, take it 5 steps at a time.
Yeah.
Literally. Oh, it's your turn. I was like sitting there, I was like, let's dig into that bowl.
Yep. No, it's me. It's me.
It's you.
Okay. This is a good topic actually right now.
Okay.
Grief in modern life.
Ugh.
How we carry, talk about, and live with it.
Okay. Grief in modern life. Well, we have both had very similar experiences dealing with grief recently.
Yes.
In particular, my situation, the day after my birthday back in March, I have had a cat, and she passed away the day after my birthday. And then in April, one of my best friends committed suicide. And then you've been dealing with your phases of grief with your losses. And what were those ones?
So I recently lost my mother-in-law this last Christmas, December, last Christmas, before Christmas. And she was like superwoman in my eyes. She
was a beautiful woman.
I would not have got through my 20s without that lady. It's my kids' grandmother. Just beautiful soul inside and out. So that's been really tough. And then I recently found out about a friend that passed. I've had in my life over 20 years, and it's hard because I'm carrying at that grief, even like
Yes.
we were talking about over earlier about like the families. Like I feel so bad for the family right now. Like, and that's weighing on me a lot because I always think about like, what are they going to do? How are they dealing with it? If it's affecting me like this, how's it affecting them? And so I think a lot. I think a little probably too hard, but I also hope the recent passes and losses that I have anyways, I hope that they're in a better place. And I just know that they're looking over and they're watching and they're here. And sometimes it's the way I get through my day. It's just knowing that they're over looking and watching us.
Still here.
Yeah. Their energy's still here.
Because energy never goes away.
Exactly.
We're scientifically talking, like energy literally never goes away. And when you study like a human's body, a soul, an entity, whatever you want to refer to it as, somebody's essence, that energy never dies. And it's got to go somewhere. So I like to believe that energy stays with us, and that they're present even if we can't physically be with them.
Exactly.
And I think another thing about grief, one thing in particular with me, ambiguous grief is really hard to carry as well. For example, I'm going through a divorce, and so not having that relationship with a partner has been a lot to process, because you get used to having somebody there all the time. Like you're used to going to bed with somebody, you're used to waking up next to them, you're used to sharing all your meals with them, and like learning how to I think the thing that's hardest about processing grief is that you just have to sit with it sometimes. Like I was talking with my therapist about it, and I was like, Jessica, I said, I'm dealing with like this situation right now, and like I don't know how to like grieve and like process this. And I talked about it, and like she, we just like made this like little plan where I will, when I'm feeling that grief, I need to sit with the emotions, I need to identify them and validate them, because I think a lot of the time we're just like, oh, why does that matter? Like that's, why is that?
That's silly.
Like just get over it or whatever. Like, or people will, there's other options that people utilize when they're dealing with grief, which are unhealthy coping skills, like utilizing drugs, alcohol, things that just numb you to your grief, because grief is an uncomfortable emotion to sit with.
It is. And just like how you said, going through ambiguous grief, where there was a time period where, I was used to, even though it wasn't good support and it wasn't, it was my kids' dad separating from him, getting used to him not being there, not being around, whether it was good or bad, ugly, whatever. I completely numbed myself. Totally. Just, I didn't want to feel, what I had, the feelings that I was feeling and going through, and the next steps that it took to go through that at the time. And this was about 2017 when my grandmother had passed away too. So like my whole world was just like shifted upside down, like just, completely. And I kind of just wanted just a break from life in a sense.
Just because you were like so overstimulated and so overwhelmed from everything that was coming your way, you were just like, whoa.
Yep. I completely, I walked away from my job. I walked away from paying bills. I completely shut down and turned everything off. And it is so unlike me to do that. If anyone does know me, they know I'm always on top of my stuff. I take care of my stuff, my business, my bills, all that.
You've always gotten your shit together, so to speak.
Yes. I do my best. And it is that is so unlike me to do something like that. So, the fact that even happened, and the people around me, it was only short-lived. It was a couple of months, but the fact that people I was around at that time didn't even like realize or recognize the difference, or wasn't like, oh, hey, she might need some help, or like she shouldn't be left alone to make these decisions right now. Like I was not in a place, and I was in a good place to be and are in a good place and state of mind. And so, you know, it really does resonate hard with me with grief because I associate that with that time period. And so now it's easier when it comes, like, I don't want to say easier, but like,
you're more capable of handling.
Yes, exactly. Like something really bad happens, or, you know, we lose a loved one. Like I'm definitely more capable of handling the grief than I ever was before.
Yeah. Like you're like, I can sit in this.
Yes.
This is going to pass.
Because it was so uncomfortable. Yeah. And I was like, even though what I did at the time was a good thing, because my grandma's last words literally were to leave him. To me, that was like the last thing she said to me. And I was already in the process of it too at the time. So it made a complete 100% sense for her to say this at the time. Yeah. Too. So she was not like out of line, you know, so it wasn't like, oh, my grandma's passing it to her last dying wish, her words, you know, wasn't like I took it literally to heart.
It was like she kind of like finalized it and like solidified that for you.
Yes, definitely. So it was just like a huge breaking point for me. And, you know, even when it comes to like my siblings, it just shifted. The earth had just totally shifted. Like I said, everything just upside down. Yeah. Because I thought, you know, my grandma had taught us to be really close and how to help each other and always be there for each other. And it was just mind blowing to me how we just all
kind of went your own ways.
Yeah. Just completely separated and distanced ourselves even further than before. And only now are we kind of figuring out, hey, wait, why did we even stop?
Let's come back.
Wait, why did we even stop doing that? Why did we stop hanging out? Why did we not think you weren't fun to be around, or, you know? Yeah. So yeah, grief it's hard. It's hard, and it's a lot. It's different for everyone, I feel, because
especially when grief is applied to different situations.
Yes, exactly. Because it's not just a loss of someone; it can be a loss of something.
Yeah, like with my health in particular, like. One thing that I really grieved for a long time was, so you guys can obviously see I have a port. You guys have known this. There was a point in time where I went in to get my port replaced because my port that was on this side got infected. And this doctor decided that she knew best.
I love that.
This ass is like putting it nicely. Yeah. She decided that she knew best about my body. And she placed a Hickman, which is another form of like an IV line. Yes. But like I grieved, not just my health for not being good enough that I could be healthy enough to live a life that I didn't need this, but I grieved the loss of having a port because it also took away the life that I could live with a port. Like just a simple thing, like for example, is every single week on Sundays, it's my biggest thing. I have to have my weekly shower. Yeah. It's my way that I decompress from the week. It's my way of just like starting new. And I couldn't take my showers like I was used to. And so I grieved even just that small loss. Yeah. And like changes in people's lives can be, you know, a variety of things that cause grief. Yeah. And so learning to sit there and process things that way, but also learning ways to cope with it in a healthy way, where you are like, okay, well, right now maybe I can't do this, or I feel this way, but I'm going to do something to remedy that. Yeah. And one of my favorite remedies when it comes to grief, you don't feel like it, but you have to do self-care. Yes. You have to do self-care.
It is so true. I was in a bad accident in October, so I kind of have like a bow in my arm, in my elbow. So when I was down and out with that, I will say that is something too, because when you take away someone's, you know, capability to do something for themselves, like something as simple as self-care, like showering and doing your hair and your makeup and just all the things that, you know, you do to make yourself feel good. When that was limited and taken away from me, and I have one arm,
that was hard.
That was so hard. I will say that was, you know, that was really difficult time, and I kind of had to adapt. But my gosh, the things they have out nowadays, I will say, like if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have found this awesome hair tool. But you know, I was able to adapt. Basically, I coped the best way I could out of that situation.
And you relied on me.
Yes.
The reason that she found the hair tool
Yep.
was because she allowed me to show up for her.
And, you know, I would never normally, like, I would have just been like, oh, I'll have my husband do it. You know, I'm fine. I have a roll-in shower. I could have literally just had him do it myself. But instead, I wanted to take a little bit of,
like pressure.
Pressure off of my husband, because he was doing so much and compensating for so much other things at the time that I was down with that accident, that I allowed Myra to help me, and I'm glad I did. You know, I wouldn't have gotten my hair done like that and felt as good as I did. I found that hairbrush tool that has now saved my whole hair routine in my life. So it's like, it's a game changer, really. But yeah, so like the smallest things can either, you know, it can lead you, I feel like grief can lead you down a good path.
Oh, it can, for sure.
And you can meet some great people or find some great things or discover,
foster better relationships with people.
Exactly. Along the way. Or it can go down a really, really dark, self-destructive path. And
especially with that isolation.
Yes. Like, you know, I could have easily just hid in my house and just, oh, I'm fine. You know, I don't need any help. And, you know, could have brushed it off as simple as that, but I didn't. I chose not to. I stepped outside that comfort zone, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Like, I stepped outside my comfort zone when it came to getting a port again. It taught me how to better self-advocate for myself.
Yes.
Like, if I hadn't been grieving so deeply, I don't think that I would have like really like mustered up that, like, I need to advocate for myself and for what I need and for what I want to be able to live the life that I want to live.
Yeah, because the doctors were just like, "Oh no, you're getting that Hickman." You know, that was it at that
that was
point.
Just like dry and cut. Like, you're just getting it. That's it.
You know, and then when we kind of talked about it, and I'm like, well, it's like, it's your body. Like, you can choose to go without it, sure, but that wouldn't work out so well for you. So you have to have it. So it's like, okay, well, what can we do? In order to get you to that point. And what, you know, it was such a big win too. And like, celebrate those. I feel like, even though it's just like a little accomplishment, it may seem like, or it may even be a big accomplishment.
Just even getting through the day sometimes can be like a huge accomplishment.
Yes, like, celebrate those wins. I feel, because like look how much that you struggled with having that Hickman. Like, I've seen a big difference in you since you've had the port. You know, like, just like over your body and your routine and the, you know, time and when you choose to do it. Just having that capability taken away from you, you know, that wasn't good.
And it's also taught me like resourcefulness, because now I can also help educate other people on how to do this. Because a lot of the times, like with people in the healthcare system, for example, patients don't know how to be patients. And doctors are taught only how to be doctors. So being able to like bridge that gap, so doctors can have like a patient's perspective, and a patient can also have like the perspective of a doctor's view, and like know how to sit there and kind of meld them together so that they can like work together. Like, I wouldn't have developed that resourcefulness if I hadn't gone through that grief.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not. I don't think you would have. And just kind of thrown it back and forth between what I know and you knew, and like advocating for yourself, really, like you said, like just really standing up for yourself. That was a big accomplishment and a big win.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay, let's see what else we've got.
We got like 4, but
it's okay. We want the whole entire jar today.
The whole bowl.
Let's see. Ooh, the sober curious movement and changing relationships with substances.
Okay, say that first part again.
The sober curious movement.
Okay.
And changing relationships with substances.
Okay, well, like in a good way or a bad way or both?
I think it can go both ways. Because like when you're sitting there and you're trying to be sober and you're curious about being sober, especially if you've been somebody who's experimented with things, like being curious about being sober and living your life, or maybe you don't even have to be somebody that's tried substances, like just wanting to experience life being sober. Like, I think, you know, they call it, again, the sober curious movement and changing relationships with substances. So I think that it's hard because a lot of people, I don't know, people tend to rely on substances because of past traumas.
Oh yeah.
That's a big thing. And because it's a negative coping skill that we've like learned, because we don't know how to sit with our emotions. We don't know how to process emotions. And so when you sit there and you change your relationship with substances, like for example, weed. Weed is not itself an addictive substance. However, if you have an addictive mindset or an addictive personality, as people like to call it, you can develop addictive patterns to utilizing it.
Yeah.
And so like being sober and being curious about like living life sober, like how do I live my life in a sober way where I can still be happy and still, you know, move through things? Because like ultimately, like when you're using substances, you're numbing yourself out and you're not able to process those things. Like, yes, you may not feel them for a temporary moment, but that's not going to change like the fact that that problem is still there, the fact that that grief or that loneliness or that trauma is still going to be there when you come down or when you come out of that like high.
That Band-Aid is just going to rip right off.
Yes, like you're going to go back to that same life. And so I think learning to change your mindset when it comes to realizing that you can be sober, there is help to like you can utilize help to help you move through those feelings of discomfort that you're dealing with. You have to be able to reach out and use those support systems, because like you can like have a healthy relationship with substances. Like you can still smoke like a joint if you're with a group of friends and like enjoy being like high and you get the munchies, and that's great. Or you can, you know, need it for like a medical reason. But if you're sitting there and, you know, you're having a bad day and you're like, damn, I just want to get high because I don't want to deal with this. Like that's where it becomes problematic.
Exactly.
And so I think that's a good way to change the relationship when it comes to substances.
Yeah, I fully agree there.
Like even with alcohol too.
Yeah. Like I've kind of been on like, even with like nicotine, I've been cigarette free for almost, it'll be 2 years this year.
Oh,
so
that's a big change.
Yeah, it is big. I mean, I can't say nicotine free, but
yes,
I am cigarette free. So even just that, I mean, it's I don't want to say like, oh, it's a choice.
Yeah,
but it is.
And it's not necessarily like what do they call it, motivation or determination. It is, you have to have like a change of mindset, but you also have to be given the proper coping skills and tools to be able to be like, okay, well, I don't need to choose this. I can choose to do this and this and this instead.
Exactly. Because like, you know, I've been on both ends of addiction too, of being an addict and going through active addiction and then being over 10 years.
Wow. I can't believe it's been 10 years now.
Almost over 10 years.
That is so cool.
It's like, you know, I never thought that I would want to numb myself so bad. And like you said, if I would have had better coping techniques and resources and things I know people I could have utilized and stuff at that time, maybe I wouldn't have.
Oh, yeah.
Because I already knew what I was using, where it was going to lead, and you know what the outcome was going to be by using it. Like I never once doubted like, oh, my life is going to be 100% hunky-dory if I just keep using it, you know.
Like you knew there were going to be consequences that came from it.
Yes, big time. Like and looking back as a person that has had parents that were addicted to drugs and alcohol,
heavily addicted,
you know, like I said, I never thought that would be me. You know, I was like, oh, I know.
Like when you're a little girl, like when you're sitting there and you're talking with your friends and stuff, you're like, no, I don't ever, you know, I don't want to use them. I will never use them.
Dude, I got so mad at like my friends that when they started to smoke pot and stuff, you know, smoking pot, smoking weed. And when they're like 12, 13, you know, I got so angry at them. And I was just like, that's wrong. That's bad.
Yeah.
Like, even though I knew what, you know, that it wasn't like a horrible drug. Yeah. Weed. I knew.
You're like, no.
It's going to lead to other things. And at such a young age, you know, I'm glad I did. I was aware of that at least. Yeah.
You knew that like it was a gateway. Yes. To other addictions that were there.
And being told through like my grandmother and my grandfather on my dad's side, you know, you have addicts in your family, in your blood. It's in your DNA, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Why are you telling me this?
Yeah, people don't get that when you say that like addiction is in your DNA. It's not just like, oh, for example, my grandmother, she used cocaine.
Right.
So it's like, it's not just like, okay, well, I can crave cocaine because she used it.
Yeah.
It's literally the way that addiction works is it genetically changes your predisposition to how you are able to cope with life. And it makes you literally, mentally, and emotionally more susceptible. It's not just like a physiological thing. It is like literally how trauma like transfers through generations. Addiction also transfers through generations as well.
Definitely, because my grandma, there was a pill for everything.
Everything.
So the kids were sick or they had runny nose, or she was like, oh, we got to get this, or they got to take this, we got to take that, and so coming from a family of addicts, so I always had that, that's bad, that's right, we don't do those things as a teenager, and I'm glad I did, because kind of navigating that experimental time period of my life, I was able to stay away from anything harder than that, really, for, like I said, for such a long time. I never thought in my mid-20s that I would take it a step further, knowing what I knew. But I knew also that it was like you said, a coping technique, because my family did it.
You had that example.
Yeah. And I was like, well, there's got to be a reason why they keep doing it, right? Like, it's been all these years, all this heartache, all these problems, and they still choose to use it. Why? Like, I couldn't relate with that part, and I kind of still don't, because I can't choose the drug over my family, my friends, my kids. There's just absolutely no way. But at the same time, it did get in the way. Like, it was a big factor. And if I wouldn't have had the support that I had at that time, it could have, even though knowing what I know and knowing what the outcomes could have been, if I didn't have that support at that time, it could have went.
It really could have gone down a really dark path.
Yes. And, if I didn't have that support, I feel like, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, substance abuse and addiction, you can sit there and you can keep on using.
Yes.
And, maybe one day you might kill somebody. You might kill somebody that you love. You might kill yourself. And it may be intentional or unintentional, but, that's why I think shifting that perspective on substances is so important. So that way you learn where to put your values and develop your values as well. Because when you have values, then you can sit there and dictate, okay, I'm not going to use that substance because that's a low frequency for me. Like I will never, I don't judge people who are addicted. I don't judge people who utilize, but I will never, ever use meth in my life, because I am so scared that, like, taking away my ability to be present in my body and to make sure that other people don't abuse me when I'm abusing that drug. Like, that relationship that I've developed with myself, that value that I've developed within myself, is how I've developed that relationship with a drug, because ultimately I've never used it, but the fact is that drug is still there. And so people have to realize that all of us in our lives, alcohol will always be there, cocaine, meth, opiates, all of those things will always be present in all of our lives. We have to develop that relationship with each of those, and we have to sit there and put our values within each of those relationships. And that's what will dictate, like, what happens in our lives.
Oh, yes. And I will say, there are some good drugs out there too, like, as in like
shrooms, like ketamine.
Yes, like used it in treatment and therapies. I 100% agree with those.
Oh yeah.
Like, I cannot tell you when I have used like psilocybin, so mushrooms in small doses,
microdosing,
how much stress it relieves for me in particular. I mean, again, that's me. Everybody is totally different. It was like a total game changer for me, really. It allowed me to step outside of reality, for a short time. To laugh and to feel so vibrant, and everything, you're looking at everything as if you've never seen it before. So it's like in like a 2-year-old's
like
eyes,
beautiful.
almost.
It's like you're like, whoa,
Yes.
like let me take all of this in and like a new experience.
Like I've actually recorded videos, and so is my husband, of like again, just mushrooms, and the difference in the way that we communicate and like how we like talk and look at things. I am just like glowing. I'm like this big smiling ball of sunshine, basically. And you can tell, like, even just watching the videos, you can see how happy and how, like, the stress, the relief, just everything is melted away, and I'm not worried about anything but being present and happy in that moment. So,
which is a big deal because a lot of people can't be present.
Yes, and because my mind is always going. So sometimes it is hard for me to shut everything else down and phones and everything and just be there. So something that allows me to do that and allows me to be me in a safe space, I will.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but you know, I will agree that in like supervised situations or you know, stuff like that,
or planned situations, like responsibly planned situations.
Like I would love to get a group together and microdose.
Oh my
gosh. Like a good healthy group together and just
that would be beautiful.
Sit around. Yeah, could you imagine?
That would be so beautiful.
When
like
it would
get a
be
group
so
of people
fun.
And go camping.
Yes.
And like, you know, you're all situated and you all just sit there and you experience like that can be very healing for groups of people. That's why they have like healing groups that sit there and like do that. Like they have I don't remember what they're called. I'm blanking on it. They have people who will go
like peyote or something.
Like peyotes, but they have like these big groups that will sit there and they like not ashwagandha, but there's like all these different like it's like psilocybin and like people will use ketamine, for example, and they sit there and they do these in groups and it like literally becomes like a therapy, like a healing moment for people.
You'll build connections with people that you thought you could never build, and you know it's not just because of the drug either. Yeah, the drug's like a little bit of liquid courage, as you may say, but
it's a facilitator.
Yes, there you go. Perfect. And so you have that common denominator basically all in between you.
Oh, it's a shaman.
Okay, there we go.
That's what I was meaning. Yes.
Okay, yeah, like a shaman.
Like supervise like with a shaman and sit there and have them guide you through that experience.
Because I've had someone do that. Like my first time ever, I was probably a little too young. I won't say exactly, but you know, I was young and I had an older gentleman there, and he like legit, he was into a lot of herbal medicines and like very, very knowledgeable about his stuff. And you know, guided us through this journey. And I'll tell you what, I don't think I've ever had a better journey than that. So I agree with that, where I know that is healing, therapeutic. Like I would 100% do that. And I would love a community that would love to do that too.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cool.
Yes,
that would be so cool.
That would.
Like so a lot of people when they hear ketamine, it's a horse tranquilizer, but it's also a party drug.
Yeah.
And I do ketamine treatments every week because it helps with my medications. It helps them to be more effective, but it also helps with processing trauma.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to say, and also processing things. Thank you. Yeah.
Because it like sits there and like when you're dealing with trauma, you're like in the thick of like that situation and in the thick of those emotions and feelings. And it like what it does is it kind of like pulls you out of that. Like it reminds me kind of like on Spider-Man, like when he's being consumed by that black
venom.
Yes, by venom. He's being consumed by venom. And like when he's separating from venom, it's kind of, it reminds me of being separated from that trauma. And it gives you this perspective to be like, okay, this is the reality of things.
Yeah.
And it helps you put everything into perspective so that way you can just like move forward with like things and you don't feel like as much grief and as much pain and shame that typically is associated with trauma.
Exactly.
And so that, I think that's a big thing too, is that like I've started to have more respect for psychedelics. That's the word.
Yes.
Psychedelics.
There we go.
I mean, I used to be like no to drugs and very hardcore because I grew up in the age of the say no to drugs kids.
Yep.
But like as I've like learned, and as there's a time and a place, as long as you're safe and you have like the right guidance, like there is a time and place for those to be utilized as a facilitator to healing.
Yeah.
So
I can agree on that 100%. And like I said, there's both good and bad.
Yes. I mean, it depends on how you're utilizing them and stuff and what type of drugs they are. But I think that there can be a positive to things, and then there could also be a great thing to being sober.
Yes.
Especially
yes.
like depending on your life, your personality, your physiological like makeup and stuff. So yeah. Let's do 2 more. You do 1 more and I'll do 1 more.
All right. My turn?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so healing trauma and inner child work.
Ooh, this one is a good one.
Yeah, it is.
So I do, with borderline personality disorder, some of the therapy that I have to do is parts work. And one of the parts work that I do is, for example, I have like my inner child, and then I have my adult version of myself, and then I have the version of the person who is like experienced that trauma.
Okay.
And so like I sit there and I talk to each one of those like parts of me, and I ask them like, what do you need to find peace? What do you need to find relief? And like learning especially to listen to the inner child that guides so much of that is what has helped me. Like, and then not just like listening to them, but also utilizing like afterwards. Like if you sit there and, for example, you talk to a kid and you're trying to soothe the child, you bring the child to you, you talk to the child, you know, you rub their back, you touch them, you help soothe them physically, you bring them outside of that experience and back into a present moment where they feel safe and loved and accepted. But then what do children do after they've had that? They go play.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I like to do to incorporate it is I like to go play, whether it's like painting or going for a walk with my dog, like anything that I can do that like my inner child would want that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Like that really has helped me heal a lot of traumas that I've had in my childhood.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
Like I feel like for me, I don't know, I had to deal with a lot of trauma early on, and I didn't even like label it as trauma at first because I was just like,
you don't really know.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I just went through it. Everybody has a rough childhood. Like, no one's childhood is perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody has dysfunctionality some way, somehow, or some type of it in their family, and and what I knew to be a normal, and stuff like that. But as I got older and realized that, I was still kind of repeating, and I wanted to break that cycle, of course.
Yeah.
But instead, it kind of carried on into my family, into my 20s as post-traumatic stress from childhood, because I was so used to living in that chaos that it was just normal to me. I didn't know any different. So once I realized, okay, you're worth more, I valued myself.
Yeah.
Whether others didn't at that time, and whether I didn't see it or not. It took a lot for me to get through that, but it was, I'm trying to see where I'm trying to go with this, but it was hard for me to even realize like, oh, you do have PTSD. You do have things that are triggering.
Like the acceptance, but also like the acknowledgement of it.
Yes.
Because like you for so long, like people who go through trauma, they don't want to like not necessarily admit it, but like accept it, because like you get taught to gaslight yourself, like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like I remember, for example, when I was trigger warning, when I was sexually assaulted, I remember one of the very first thoughts was, oh, well, he didn't use a knife, he didn't have a gun, he didn't beat me, he didn't kill me, so it's not that bad.
Right.
So like when it comes to trauma, I feel like we try to justify and like gaslight ourselves out of that trauma.
There you go. That's like perfectly way to put what I was trying to say there. Because it's like, I went so long with like, oh, I just went through a lot of hard crap, like what other person doesn't. Yeah. So I never really associated with it being trauma.
To like validate it.
Yes. And to, nurture it, to be more, be kind to myself.
To have self-compassion.
Yes. Like I was so hard on myself for like having kids and for the way my body looked and, things like that I would beat myself up and not just look at myself in the mirror and just be like, you're beautiful.
You're worthy.
You're worthy. Yep. You deserve to be here.
You deserve good things.
Yeah, I deserve nice things, fine things, whatever, I want to let into my life. It was really hard for me to get to that point. And I will say it took a lot of healing and growing, a lot of people to get to that point.
Oh yeah.
Of just even accepting and being, okay, I do have these problems. I do have,
and they like stem from the childhood.
Yes.
Like they continue on, like, and it's hard too, because like when things stem from your childhood, you don't know any different.
Exactly.
Like you don't have anybody, like, especially to compare things to.
Yes.
And like the ones that you do hear about, you're just like, oh, see, everybody has a hard time with things.
Yeah. So it's normal,
Yeah.
And then that's what I would definitely pass it off as, is, justify it. I made so many excuses, like when people would ask me how things were going, when I was really going through it in my 20s and stuff. I'm sure a lot of my friends later on noticed that, I was sugarcoating everything.
Yeah.
I would just talk someone's ear off just to get them to stop asking questions, basically.
Yeah.
Like I would anything to defer them away from the real truth.
Like to diffuse them from their curiosity.
Yep. I got really good at that. So I guess kind of like manipulation in a sense.
Yeah.
Because I wanted them to think, everything was perfect and painted this really perfect picture for everyone to see. But
because you just don't want people digging into your past.
Yeah, but
digging into the hurts.
Yeah, but behind those doors, oh yeah, lots of hurt, lots of trauma. Just a scared kid, basically, scared little girl. And I definitely wish, I did have some more maternal support at that time. That would have probably been a big game changer, but it wasn't. So I just had to kind of figure it out on my own. And also I would find, what they call like pseudo moms. I've noticed when I look back, I've always had an older woman that I knew was smart and had a lot of advice to give, or was just very knowledgeable, that I would always find myself turning to instead of my own mother. Because they helped me more. I got more advice from them during those times in my life than I did my own. So, I that's something I actually kind of look back on.
It's like that self-soothing that you were seeking.
Like I can definitely relate or recognize now. I mean, that what I was doing was trying to connect and build that connection with somebody. I wanted it so badly, obviously. But because of what my mom wasn't willing to do it, other people were. So I let them. And they didn't mind calling me their daughter. And loving me like their daughter. Just.
And it's hard too, because like I think with inner child work, acknowledgement of like when you have a trauma, for example, if you have a trauma at 6 years old that happens, your brain literally is stunted and doesn't grow the way that it should emotionally or intellectually, mentally. It can't grow because it's stunted at that point. That's how trauma affects the brain. And so doing that inner child work and learning how to like soothe that child and like seek out what that child needs, like you sought out what your inner child needed, like that's something that can bring a lot of healing to you too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel so too. Like I definitely still have ways to go with some areas, like obviously like with my mom and stuff like that, but that's a two-way street as well. And I feel like, I held so much anger too. Like I carried so much resentment and anger towards my mom for those reasons, that she could walk into the room and I would be so angry. Like my whole
just
mood
like instantly
would instantly change. And I chose to let that go. Because I was like, I'm sick of feeling this hate, this resentment. I know my mom made choices and maybe she could change them if she could. And she's human too, and she makes mistakes.
I think that kind of comes like as we get older, like having that compassion and that understanding for our parents, to be like, they were human parents.
Like they're, my mom, I am a lot like my mom, even though my mom didn't, like my grandma raised me more than my mother did. So I am finding out in my older years I am a lot more like my mom than I wanted, but it's all right. It's all right.
And you're changing things.
Yes.
Which is important. Like when you know better, you do better.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't change my life in that sense, because I feel like if, say, my mom had been there and I had been nurtured and spoiled with attention and love and all these other things, that maybe I wouldn't have been the person. I definitely wouldn't have been the person I am, but I wouldn't have been as good of a mom, or maybe I would have been a spoiled little brat.
Yeah.
I would have just been maybe a complete different person that I don't think I would like today.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying, it had to happen.
Yeah.
But
and
it does happen for a reason.
You've grown through that.
Yes. And I see too many coincidences that I don't know if I believe in coincidences anymore.
I don't believe in coincidences
that
at all.
They just, even just a word, right? But like,
I think it's dismissive.
Yes, it is.
Because
life
is intentional. Like,
yeah.
There's way too much intention in life for things to be coincidences.
Yes. Like even just small little things. I might just be like, I caught that one, but it just happens too many times where I caught this little one or I caught this big coincidence. It's like, okay, what's really going on here? Like it really makes you wonder.
It really does. It really does.
It's crazy.
Okay, let's do our last one. That was a good one.
Yeah, it was actually.
I love talking about inner child work. Oh my gosh. Okay. What's a weird or hidden talent that you have?
A weird hidden talent?
What's a weird or hidden talent that you have? Oh gosh. Let me think about that. I don't know. One of the things about me, I have a genetic condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And Ehlers-Danlos syndrome causes your collagen to be defective. So you become like extra stretchy. And like people typically like associate like being extra stretchy with like people who contort themselves.
Oh yeah.
So before I broke my pelvic bone last year, there is it's a kick called a scorpion kick, where you literally like basically do the splits in like the air and you bring your leg up and you kick that way.
Oh wow.
I can also like reach behind my back and like I can touch. I don't know if you can see.
Oh wow, yeah.
Like
there's no way I could do that. Yeah. There's no way.
Like you can sit there, I can overlap my fingers.
I know I can't.
Yeah. So that's just like one of my weird hidden talents, thanks to my ADS.
Right.
So
that is random and weird. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what's like hidden or rare or weird, I guess. Even weird. Yeah. Because I'm definitely weird.
I mean, we both are. We're both weird. It's all good. We can draw another one if you want.
Yeah, go for it. Okay. I'm just like, I don't know. There's a few.
It's a hard one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've been talking a lot about that. The difference between coping and healing. I think we've covered that a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's another one.
Ooh. I think when it comes out and I think of that hidden or weird fact, I'll get back to you.
Yes, we'll come back to it. Rest as resistance or rebellion. Ooh, we were talking about this before.
Yep.
Like, I think that rest is it has to be intentional. Rest is not being lazy.
No.
I think it is not necessarily resistance, but more so a rebellion, because like our society is so much like driven by the hustle culture and like go, 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 go. And like you don't need time to rest. You don't need time to recuperate. And like you're looked down upon if you're not being constantly productive.
Yes. And like, so like with what I do for work, I'm like a private caregiver. And so people are like, oh, it's got to be pretty easy. Like people that don't know me anyways, when they say that, they're like, oh, so you just go to their house and kick it with them and clean their house up a bit.
You're like, totally.
Yeah, that's about the description of it. But yeah, no, that is not all that I do. So it is definitely a choice for me, because I can go all week, all day long if I force myself to. I can even have a really super long day and be so tired I can barely keep my eyes open. But then when I get home and I have that relaxing time, I still find myself awake and not asleep.
Because you feel like you have to be up and doing things constantly.
Yep. There's always something that's got to be done, something that needs my attention, or I haven't paid any attention to, so I've got to get it done that I've procrastinated and put off. Oh my gosh.
It just is like those little thoughts that linger in your mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely consider it a rebellion.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. Because I know I have to give myself the rest on weekends that I need, like we were talking about. So sometimes I rebel and I'm like, well, I know I have this plan, so I'm going to do this instead, and so I'll sacrifice, but
yeah,
it is well worth the sacrifice most of the time.
Yes, I would say all of the time, because like I don't think we get enough of those moments of rest.
That's true.
But yes, so thank you for tuning in today. We kept you for an extra 45 minutes. But I think our conversations were well worth it.
Yeah.
Again, I am going to be dropping our next episode on, oh my gosh, we're going to be in July.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We're already at June.
Yes, we're sitting in June. Okay.
And I hope this, reaches to whoever needs to hear this.
Yeah. Hope that you felt like you were kind of just like hanging out with us girls, like just chilling with us and hearing our little conversations and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's our goal. So
yes, we hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in July. Take care of yourselves.